Well, here we are again. This is Brother Peter. You know that somebody that might get on to the uh, tidbits from the Word would say, this man is rattled. He is rattling on this subject, that subject, and he's running all over the place, and he's not really put together what he's saying. Well, in 10 minutes, it's pretty difficult to say what I really want to say and go from A to Z. To go from Genesis to Revelation and not fill in many of the very important parts on a one-term basis, you don't have anything to walk on. Now, we're talking about the early church and have really been talking about the early church for the last 4 or 5 excerpts. And right now I want to bring up this guy. His name is Saul. He was a persecutor of the Christians. Well, he was also a godly man and a man that followed God. You say he was murdering the Christians and he was following God? Yes, he was. To the best of his ability, in ignorance to Christendom, he was walking as God said. If a man breaks the law, kill the man. And he was following that rule. And he was going across this country, serving God the way that he knew how. And he was good at what he did. He seeked out the Christian. But the last guy that he killed, Stephen, that came before the Lord, after he was killed, Stephen said he looked up before he died. Now listen to this. Listen to Brother Peter very, very carefully right here. Stephen said, as he was dying, before he died, he looked into heaven and saw Jesus, the Son of God, standing beside the Father. What did he see before he left here? He saw where he was going. And he said it was worth it. How do you know he said that, Brother Peter? Because he said these words, lay this not to their charge, for they know not what they do. Paul, the guy Saul, was standing there holding the cloak of Stephen and was the guy that gave the order, stone him. And as he stood there and stoned him, he was not convicted. So Stephen said to the Lord, Lord, give this guy a chance. So I can just see Stephen gets up there and he's in heaven and he's conversing with God. And God says to Stephen, what would you do if you had the opportunity to do something? What would you do with this guy Saul that killed your body and sent your soul up here, perhaps a few days early? And what would you do? And Stephen, I can see Stephen in his loving manner, the loving man he was, the preacher of the gospel he was, the follower of the gospel he was. He was a meek and mild Christian fellow that was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ without fear of death, because he knew that death's door was the only way into the heavenly of heavens, heaven of heavens. You can only get there through death's door in the final end. You can live there now on this earth if you live close enough to the Lord, but you can also go there permanently, and when you do, you're going to heaven of heavenlies. So somebody got to send you on, or you go, death's got to send you on. So here's this Saul. He comes along and he stones this young man, Stephen. Stephen's up there talking to the Lord, and Stephen said, why don't we take this Saul, now he's part of the heavenly suggestion force, and let's save him. Let's show him you real, what you really are, who you really are, and what you're like, and what we can do for him. And in turn, because of what he's been doing and where he's been, what he can do and accomplish for the kingdom of heaven. So he says to the Lord, let's go down there and blind him. Let's confront him. So here's Saul riding on his donkey, and he's headed down to Emmaus, another town, to find another Christian to kill. That's exactly what he was doing. He was crossing the country, killing those first people that were called of the way. The first church was called the Way. And Antioch was the first place they were called Christians. That's where Paul went. And he's the one that caused people to be called Christian, because he himself had to become Christ-like. Now, as Paul was going across there killing the Christians, Stephen, he sends Stephen on up. This is the last Christian that God's going to allow Paul, Saul, as it were, to put to death. And so Stephen gets up there and he says, let's go down now. And now we're going to have some fun. You say, Brother Peter, can you have fun in the Word? Hey, if you'll start studying the Word and start getting into the mysteries of the Word, you'll find out that they're better than any novel that you ever read in your life. Follow this story of Saul backwards and then come up to this guy Peter and follow the story of the customs of the land of that day, and you'll find out that neither one of those birds, Paul or Peter, would go over there to a tanner's house, a guy that handles dead bodies. They were unclean. And Paul, the Pharisee he was not about to go over and eat dinner or go sit down in a chair in a house where they were cutting up dead bodies and of flesh of animals. And so, and here's Peter wouldn't touch a thing like that either. But anyway, let's see what Stephen says to the Lord. We don't know for sure that Stephen said this to the Lord, but we know that the outcome of what God did was more than likely Stephen standing there saying, God, let's send Peter over there to Ananias' house, same place that God is going to send Paul after he blinds him on the road to Emmaus. He comes down with a great light. Jesus Christ himself revealed to Paul himself and openly spoke to him and said, you're going to be fishers of men. I'm going to call you, not going to kill the Christians anymore. He said, why do you kick against me? I am the one that has come, and the fulfillment, I am that Messiah that you know all about. By the way, Paul knew all about Jesus. He knew all about the prophecy of Jesus. But just to prove himself, he took 3 years after he got saved and sat down and got in the Bible and got in the book. Did he quit living? No. Did he quit serving God? No. He was building on the foundation that God gave him when the great light came for those 3 years too, but he schooled. And that's what you and I are supposed to do. We are supposed to get in this book, and we are supposed to school. After we get saved, we have got to go to school. And we have got to learn. We have got to stop, look, and listen. Get in the Bible. It's the best book you'll ever read. You know, our time has come and gone for this 10 minutes, but we're going to go right into another 10 minutes. We're going to be talking on the same subject. Passing through death's door, putting forth motion and things that are righteous rather than things of the world, and following God close enough so when we get to heaven, he'll say, worthy.